Somewhere right now, someone is lying in the dark and thinking about the future, not in the abstract, not about charts and reports, but quietly, personally. Whether the world their children inherit will bear even the faintest resemblance to the one in which they themselves grew up. This is not a new question. It was asked in Babylon, in Rome, in the cities of the Indus Valley, whose names we do not even know. Every civilization that collapsed believed it was special, that the rules which applied to others did not apply to it. Tonight, we make no predictions. We ask a question, slowly, honestly, drawing on what the earth has kept for us from those who came before, because the earth remembers everything. If you study collapsed civilizations long enough, not myths, not Hollywood disasters, but real data, soil layers, shifts in pollen composition, sudden silences in the written record, you begin to notice the same pattern. Every society fractured along the same fault lines. Not all at once, not from a single cause, but always the same ones. The climate shifts slightly. A trade route closes. A disease spreads. A government loses the trust of its people. Individually, each of these is survivable. Together, in an unlucky sequence, it becomes something else entirely. What is astonishing is not that civilizations collapsed. What is astonishing is how many of them, from the inside, looked as though they would last forever. 4,200 years ago, in Mesopotamia, the first empire in history existed, Akkad. The first standardized weights and measures, the first professional army, the first taxes recorded in clay. King Sargon called himself Lord of the four corners of the world. His empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the mountains of Syria. From the inside, it looked eternal. Then the rain stopped coming. Not all at once. First, the harvest was smaller than usual, then smaller still. Farmers abandoned their fields. Officials demanded more grain from those who remained. Soldiers on the frontiers went without pay. Scientists call it the 4.2 kilo-year event, a global climate shift. In lake sediments, traces of that drought are still visible, a thin layer of dust where fertile soil should be. An empire built over centuries, dissolved in a single generation. Along the banks of the Indus River, 4,500 years ago, something extraordinary was happening. Cities, not villages, real cities. Straight streets on a grid. Drainage systems more sophisticated than anything Europe would build for 3,000 more years. We call it the Indus Valley civilization. But they had their own name, and we will never know what it was. Their script has never been deciphered. And then, something shifted. Not fire, not conquest, not a single day you could point to and say, that was the moment everything ended. The cities thinned. Neighborhoods emptied slowly, not in a wave, but in a long, quiet retreat. Drains went unrepaired. The standardization that made these cities remarkable simply stopped. People moved upstream, to smaller villages, to fields that were still reliable. They just knew that things were quieter than before. A civilization doesn't always end with a roar. Sometimes it ends with a silence so gradual, you don't notice it until the silence is complete. Here is what makes our moment different. The Akkadians had no satellite images of their drying fields. The Indus Valley engineers had no instruments measuring the weakening monsoon before it failed. We do. Climate models predicting rainfall 30 years out. Historians who have spent careers studying why civilizations collapse and what the warning signs looked like from the inside. We are the first civilization that can see what is coming while there is still time. And yet, The fault lines are familiar. Rising food insecurity, governments losing public trust, supply chains that revealed during a single pandemic how brittle they become when one pressure point fails. 8 billion people. The same shipping lanes, the same atmosphere, the same assumption that the system will keep working because it always has before. History does not repeat itself, but it rhymes, and right now, you can hear the meter building toward something familiar. The question is whether we are the first civilization wise enough to read the writing on the wall before the wall comes down. Every civilization we have studied tonight left something behind. Not always monuments, not always writing. Sometimes just a thin layer of ash in the soil, a shift in pollen, a chemical signature in ice that formed 10,000 years ago above a glacier that no longer exists. The Akkadians left drought records pressed into clay. The cities of the Indus left perfectly standardized bricks, still holding their proportions after 4,000 years of silence. The Bronze Age left burnt palace archives and letters that were never delivered, still waiting in the ruins of Ugarit. Each of them was someone's everything. Each of them felt from the inside, like the final version of the world, like the arrangement of things that would simply continue. None of them were the last, not one. We are the next layer in the sediment. Somewhere, very far in the future, careful minds will sift through what we leave behind. They will find traces of vast carbon spikes locked in ancient ice, strange alloys in the geological record, the sudden appearance of plastic in deep ocean sediment, ruins of megacities along coastlines reshaped by rising seas. They will find fragments of our circuitry that they cannot quite decode, inscriptions in languages that have become as silent as linear A is to us today. And they will ask the same question that we ask about Akkad, about the Indus, about every civilization that built something large and complicated and believed it would last. What happened to them? And did they see it coming? We don't get to choose their answer. We only get to shape the evidence, the stories we write down, the things we choose to maintain, the way we respond when the familiar patterns of weather and trade and trust begin to bend. All through human history, one thing has remained constant: the capacity of small groups of people to care for one another, to improvise, to carry something forward through the fire. You listening now are part of that same long line, a descendant of survivors, a potential ancestor of someone who will look back on this era as long ago. We are not the last generation. We are the generation that decides what the next one inherits. Good night.